This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into an extra innings episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. I'm Samantha Croston. That's Ashley Wenskoski. And we have a really special guest with us today. This is John DeMarsico. He is the director for the SNY Mets broadcast, but he has been with the organization for 17 years. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so I guess just to start, we were both curious. Obviously, we're both from the Northeast. Saw in an interview that you actually have been a lifelong Mets fan. Just wanted to know how you came into your fandom and how that all began for you.
Yeah, I am not from the Northeast. So I actually was born in Florida, grew up in North Carolina, to New York transplants. So my dad is from Long Island, and he imprinted his Mets fandom on me at a very young age. There are pictures of me, barely a few weeks old wearing Mets gear. And so for better or worse, I've been a Mets fan my whole life. And so I took that fandom and really got into baseball growing up, and then eventually really got into film in college and played ball in college. And then, when this opportunity arose in the form of an internship at SNY in the summer of 2009, I sort of ran with it.
That's awesome. So I just want to take our viewers through a little bit of your background. Like you said, you started interning at SNY in 2009. So you've been there for 17 Mets seasons now, but how did you work your way up to being the Mets in-game director like you are now?
Yeah. So it's the way this business sort of works is you start, it's just like any business, I guess. You start on the bottom rung. And so you go from intern to a position that we call the runner. It's a production runner. It's the guy or girl that is in the truck with the production team. And during the game, when we can't get up in the middle of the game, in the middle of the game action, we send the runner to go do things, whether it's, get a coffee, go run some paperwork up to the booth. Sometimes the booth needs to send something down to us. Back when I was a runner, it was before sort of Twitter and social media. We used to have to go to the clubhouse and look at the posted lineup in the clubhouse and take a picture of it or write it down and bring it to the truck for the graphics people to build that day's lineup. And so it's sort of a gopher job, and but it's a good way to sort of get your feet wet and surround yourself with really, our amazing booth that we've had at SNY for 20 seasons, and our production group that was in place before me was incredible. And so you sort of do every job. It's, intern, runner, production assistant, associate producer, associate director, and then eventually I was promoted in the summer of 2019 to lead director.
Just out of curiosity, now making it to what I'm sure many would consider a dream job, I just want to know what that moment felt like for you when you really finally made it to the top of that mountain a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's something that I certainly don't take for granted. Baseball is always kind of in my life, and the Mets have always sort of been a deep part of that sort of hobby / obsession / as any baseball fan knows, it's every single day, and it's such a big part of our existence. Our mood, our ups and our downs are sort of determined by this team. And so for all of this, culmination of all of my interests to sort of funnel into this one job, this perfect job, for me, it's overwhelming. It's a job that from the moment I walked into the TV truck for the first time, and that during that internship, I kind of felt like this is where I'm supposed to be, and for it all to work out like that, because sometimes it doesn't for a lot of people. Not everybody has the opportunities that I've had, and there are other challenges that other people might have to face that I didn't have to. And so I don't take it for granted, and I really try to bring that humbleness to the truck when I sit down for a game every night. Like, obviously it's fun getting all the attention, and people know my name, and our broadcast has been heralded as this this very popular product. But at the end of the day, I'm still that kid, sitting on his couch watching the DirecTV Mets game in, 1998, watching the Mets. And so I really try to bring a lot of that to me when I sit down and do a game every night.
That's amazing. And obviously such an amazing story getting to be able to do it with the team that you grew up a fan of. So the reason why we wanted to have you on today and speak to you is I feel like a lot of Mets fans have gotten to know you recently because of the way you're sort of revolutionizing baseball broadcasts in a way, right? You have your slogan that fans have seen all over social media, baseball is cinema.
Hmm.
And I think people have been really, really impressed with what you're trying to do and the sort of magic that you're creating on the SNY broadcast. So just take us through a little bit. You spoke on your film origins, studying film a little bit in college. Just take
Hmm.
us through, I guess, how you try to connect those two worlds.
Yeah, for me, the game has always been inherently cinematic, even from a young age, when I may not have even realized it. Just from my surface level watching the broadcast, I'm able to look back now and clearly see the same language being used in film as it is in television. Specifically a baseball broadcast. My predecessor was a guy named Bill Webb. He was a kind of a TV titan and one of the first like rock star directors. Like literally in the 80s and 90s, Mets fans used to bring big banners to Shea Stadium and have Bill Webb's name on them. Like, so he was the kind of the maverick director that I was fortunate enough to learn under. And so Bill may not have gone to film school, and he may not have had the same sort of interest as I do when it comes to cinema, but the way that Bill directed was very cinematic. He's one of the first directors to put cameras on the field, and he really stepped off the diamond to build tension with shots at the fans. He'd get a shot of a lady holding her pearls watching the game, a father and son, a father showing his son, a situation on the field. And he really built the tension within the baseball broadcast that we kind of take for granted now. That wasn't really there. He really implemented the tight shot of, when you get a pitcher looking over the bill of his cap and his glove is, furrowed over under his eyes, or, back 2 decades ago when he took the shot of Curt Schilling's bloody sock in the World Series. It was sort of taking the drama that was always right there in front of everybody and putting it on the screen to make the experience at home, in a way, superior to sitting in the stands.
I think that's well said. And honestly, a part of the reason why we were excited to interview you is because, for us as broadcasters, there are times we're even just watching the game in the office and we're looking at each other thinking, that was a great shot. I think now you have a better appreciation for it than maybe you did before you're inside this world. And, whether it's, I remember seeing a clip of yours recently where it was the moon, and then all of a sudden the moon dissolves into a baseball. Things like that. There's a certain originality in that you're really bringing. And I'm curious, baseball's such a long season, 162 games. How do you feel inspired every night to continuously do things differently?
Well, you brought up those shots that may not necessarily contribute to the X's and O's on the field or the storytelling within the game. But as baseball becomes sort of a second screen experience for a lot of people, I feel it's necessary to kind of jar them out of their seat once in a while. And sometimes it can be a graphic that our great staff that puts together, or a cool video package that our tape room puts together, or something the announcers are doing. But for me, I'm not an announcer. I don't have a microphone. And so try to do that visually. I'm trying to jar people out of their seats with what, like you said, a cool shot. You guys are sitting in an office someplace and you look up at the TV and, you see something interesting. And so you're going to keep your eye there for a split second longer. And so it's all strategic. It's kind of, blend the X's and O's along with all of the kind of cinematic bells and whistles. And as far as staying motivated and inspired every day for the course of 162 games, it's really easy to do that when you work with a crew that kind of embraces the quirks that you bring to the table. I mean, what I do as a director is not for everybody. It's not going to be a universally beloved thing that I do. It's going to alienate some people. It's going to be they'll find it annoying or distracting. But we try to serve many audiences on SNY. We're trying to serve the people that have been watching the Mets for 50 years and really care about a Keith Hernandez story about Lou Brock or whoever. We're trying to mix in some advanced analytics for a younger crowd. We're trying to broaden our horizons with the visual spins that I'm kind of bringing to the table. And so if you try to serve many audiences, at the end of the day, somebody is always leaving with something after watching a game. And the crew has responded so well to what we've tried to implement on, the original moments that we've tried to implement on the broadcast have been, they've kind of run with it, and it's become part of the fun of going to work every day. Cause it's like, you never know what you're going to see with baseball anyway. And now you never know what we're going to put on the air either.
Sort of along those same lines of Sam's question, you mentioned before, sort of studying film in college, some of those interests, and you mentioned Bill was a big mentor to you at SNY, but I guess what are some of your inspirations in terms of film? You're big on your letterbox. I know that's on your social media, but cinema and Hollywood wise, are there any like directors or anything there that's really inspired you?
Yeah, there are obviously direct homages that I do over the course of a season that are to specific films or specific directors. But I really try to take all of the years and years of watching movies, just like I've taken the years and years of playing baseball and doing this job for all this time, and kind of let it be the bedrock beneath me when I sit down in the truck every night and try to make every cut, not only with an X's and O's gameplay perspective. I really try to make every cut with cinematic intention. I really try to make sure that visually it makes sense to the viewers and visually it's stimulating to the viewers. And I feel like that philosophy can be kind of it can apply to one of dozens of directors. Some of the people that I'm most attracted to are Brian De Palma. I've talked about him a lot because of just his visual storytelling kind of mechanism that he funneled everything through. I mean, he would take these very Hitchcockian classic stories and retell them in a way that was not only a great story, but a visual roller coaster, an experience that that made an imprint on you. And really it's that kind of visual storytelling that really inspires me. That's gonna come to as a surprise to nobody, but it's that kind of visual stimulation that really gets me excited.
I'm only asking this because I think a lot of people would be surprised by the answer. But, you mentioned it's great to have that name recognition, but I also frequently see you, passing out flowers to some of your teammates on the broadcast. How many people does it really take to make this magic happen? And even more specifically, how important is the role of, your talented photojournalists who are getting the rack focus and helping to build up these moments?
Yeah, it's listen, what are we doing here if we don't have camera people or video people or audio people? It's our crew at the field. So I should start. So there's 4 production people that are staff at SNY. It's myself, our producer Greg Picker, our associate director Eddie Warman, and our associate producer Tom Rockland. Those are the 4 staff people at SNY. And then there's obviously the booth, Steve Gelbs. But we're surrounded every night by 40 or more technicians on site that are hired to do the countless jobs that are that take place over the course of the game: cameras, video, audio, replay, graphics, score bug. It's a huge group, but it goes far beyond even that. It goes to the people at SNY. We're not a big company, but there are hundreds of us at SNY making sure that we are, getting the ads and that the feeds are going to the right places and that things are sold and handling. I mean, it's just like any company, I guess, but like it really does all funnel into that at 7:10 first pitch. And so when we're on the air and the umpire says play ball, Like literally has hundreds of fingerprints all over what we're doing every night. It may be my voice saying it's like, ready to take two, but it took hundreds of voices prior to that for me to have even the opportunity to say those words. And then plus when I say it, someone's got to still press the button. So it's like, it's a constant sort of mechanism that's really fun to watch. And when all the cogs are clicking and we have all of our people in place, it's pretty special to be a part of.
You touched on it a little bit before, but I'm just interested in, I guess, when you really started to get into this in the last few years, and started to experiment with some of these amazing shots. This year, one of the moments that went viral was the shot of the guy in his glasses, right, looking out at the field.
Mm-hmm.
When you really started to sort of push the limits with this on the SNY broadcast, you said they were very supportive, but what did the higher ups and your bosses at SNY, say? Were they encouraging all the way through, or just like, what were those conversations like?
I think it really helped that I had someone like Bill Webb before me that kind of brought that gravitas to the position. And, because he had such a portfolio and a resume, he was the World Series director from 1995 through 2016. And so while simultaneously being the SNY director from 2006 to 2017. So because he had that gravitas, it sort of made it easy to sort of step right in and, work with the camera people that he trained and brought to the World Series. And that helped. And then initially, when I really started pushing it in 2022 with, the Edwin Diaz walk in and Jacob deGrom Simple Man, and then, the Buck Showalter Kill Bill Red Face thing. Like once I started taking chances like that and they were sort of well received, and then all of a sudden the New York Times is calling and the Washington Post, it makes it a little easier to keep pushing. And thankfully, SNY has been so understanding and grateful for what I bring to the table. But at the same time, it's, I have a good relationship with everybody, that are, making, the big time decisions at the network. And we check in once in a while. Hey, what do you have planned? What do you think about this? Hey, maybe you want to try that. Like, it's a very collaborative process. And I don't know that a lot of directors in baseball have that. And so I'm very fortunate to work in a place that's kind of embraces what I do.
I think, you mentioned that your bosses and SNY is supportive, and surely that's a part of it, because perhaps you couldn't have explored and been creative in the ways that you are now if you didn't have those resources. But then you have four other weapons: Gary, Keith, Ron, and Steve. I'm just curious, A, what it's like to work with them, but also how much more creative or maybe even confident in your work you feel you can be when those are the people on the other end who are going to be picking up your cues, so experienced and just so creative in their own ways.
Yeah, like you said, they are the greatest weapon that I could have, and some of my biggest allies. We are, as a group, we are able to do more things and take more chances than the traditional broadcast because we have this 20-year relationship with the announcers. And for Steve, it's been over 10 years. So we're almost to the point now that we've been at this point where we can finish each other's sentences. Like, I know where Gary's going with a story sometimes within the first 2 or 3 syllables that come out of his mouth. And I think that he sort of knows where I'm going if there's a lull in the broadcast and I start taking a few shots. He knows where it's going to end up. And so you play this sort of this game where you let the booth lead you, and then you eventually lead the booth. And it's a fun little tug of war, and it keeps it interesting. And when you have this relationship, for me, this is 17 seasons, and they've been together for 20 years. And our producer's been there for all 20 years. And everybody on our production staff's been together for at least 10. And plus you have the camera people that have been doing Mets games since before I was born, some of them. And so it's this continuity that you have with those guys, and knowing that there's really nothing that we can throw at them that they haven't seen before, and nothing that one of them is not going to be able to react to, because they're all when all three of them are together, it's really magical. And I think Met fans are aware of that. And I reap the benefit of that, and our production group reaps the benefit of that. It really makes it, like I said, when the cogs are all clicking, it's really a magical experience. It feels like the truck levitates sometimes.
In terms of talent, like you said, Mets fans just love Gary, Keith, and Ron. It's grown to be this sort of beautiful love affair that I think the average Mets fan has with the SNY broadcast booth, which obviously is them as the front-facing talent, but it's all of you guys behind the scenes as well. What can you say? You know, obviously, I'm sure Gary, as the play-by-play guy, is most important to the broadcast in terms of the two of you leading and guiding your way through it every single night. But what can you say makes them talent-wise really the best in the business?
Oh man, it's something that it's organic. It's, if you listen to them 20 years ago in 2006 for a full game, you may not recognize them. They were always good, but because they have 20 years together, and for Keith and Ronnie, they had a whole playing career together. And Gary's been with the organization on radio since 1989. And so it's that familiarity. It's almost familial at this point. We spend so much time with each other from spring training till the end of September, early October, that we end up spending more time with each other than our own families. And so it's really that kind of relationship and trust that makes what we do feel so special, because baseball is a unique sport. It's not like football, where it's once a week. It's not even like basketball, where it's 2 or 3 times a week. We're in people's homes every single night at 7:00. Every night people are getting home from work or sitting down to dinner or, relaxing on the couch, and they're making a decision to tune into SNY. And it's not just a decision to tune into SNY. It's an invitation for Gary, Keith, and Ron and Steve to come into their homes, and for our group to provide the sights and the sounds. And so I think if you approach it like that and you trust each other, it can really lead to some pretty spectacular things. And obviously it has over 20 seasons. But it's even though we've been together for so long, it really is changing. It's growing as the guys age, and as I get more experience and our group gets more experience. You see, even we get surprised sometimes, at what comes out of our mouths or what pictures are on the screen.
You mentioned that, all of a sudden, somewhat recently, the big outlets started calling. Everyone started to be interested in this story because obviously you guys have something special and unique going on here. I just love to know for, the young broadcasters we work with, but even just for us as well, what's maybe one lesson that you learned from taking bold chances and seeing how it paid off?
I've always felt like, at least for me, if I trust my gut, I usually feel pretty good about what I do at the end of the day, no matter what happens, because not everything I do is going to work per se. But if you approach everything passionately, like I do and like our group does, I feel like even if you do something that's not necessarily successful, or you covered something like you wish you can go back and change this or that, as long as you approach it from a perspective of passion, I feel like you can't go wrong, because that passion leads to good instincts over time. When young people reach out to me all the time, what can I do to pursue, a job in television or entertainment or a camera person or whatever it may be. And I just say, just be the most passionate person in the room. Look to your left, look to your right, and do a better job at that day than those people, because not everybody's going to be able to stand out if you're all doing the same jobs, even if you're an intern or entry level. But if you bring a little passion to whatever it is you're doing, even if it's getting coffee, it's going to stand out. And like, I know that because I've gone through 16 summer interns, like coming in and out of the truck, and some of them work with us today. I myself am an intern. Like, the proof is in the pudding. And so I feel like if you do that, and the people around you kind of give you a little bit of freedom to experiment or express yourself, take it. And I did. I'm glad I did, because it makes it fun to go to work every day.
I think that's such an inspiring and an important message, obviously, for, like you said, younger broadcasters, but really just anyone looking to crack into their field. We'll wrap up with you here. I have one more question for you. It's a little bit off the wall, but I'm just generally interested in your perspective on it. So much is made, like you said, right? A baseball season is so unique in that 162 games, night in and night out, it's the same broadcast for the team that you love. Then you get to the postseason and it's not. It's the national broadcast for weeks, and some of the most important moments of the season are not narrated by the voices you're used to every night and not directed by people like yourself. I'm just interested in your perspective on that, I guess, in how that shifts and what you think about really losing that localized regional sports network aspect of it. Because I know Mets fans themselves, right? The Mets get to the NLCS last year, and while the voices on ESPN or whatever it may be are great, they're not Gary, Keith, and Ron, and they're not SNY. So I'm just interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's always very strange to us too, because we're on, I feel like we're kind of with the team. We're on the battlefield with the team for 162 games. And then after 162 hits, the team goes on to the postseason and we go home. And so, like even last year, we had that amazing day in Atlanta, the doubleheader where the Mets clinched on game one. And then, they hopped on a plane and went right back to Milwaukee for the wild card series. Well, we didn't. We hopped on a plane and went home, and we watched as fans. And so it's always a little jarring. It's always a little shocking when that happens. Obviously, we do this job because we want to do the biggest games. And it's almost more frustrating when we lose the regular season games to the big networks sometimes. Like even this weekend in Philly, we didn't do any of the games. It was, Apple, Fox, and ESPN. And it happened earlier this year with the Dodgers, same deal. So those are a little frustrating because those are you do the games in Denver and you do the games against the Athletics to do the games against the Dodgers and the Phillies. And so that becomes a little frustrating. But that's kind of the way it is, and the way it's always been for baseball. I feel like it's extra jarring to Mets fans because they have such a close relationship to the broadcast, and we've had that consistency over the last 20 years. And so they feel a little extra. If you're a Yankee fan, obviously you have Michael Kay, but they have 1,000 analysts coming in and out, and so there's less consistency. And so when it changes up and you have whoever doing a national broadcast, like it's not felt as much, because I think for Met fans, their relationship to this broadcast is really it's a beautiful thing, because we don't have and rings and championships as Mets fans, but we have a damn good broadcast, and Met fans are very proud of that. And I think that's really cool to have this relationship to something that you watch every night and know that deep down in your heart, that nobody else is getting what I'm getting as a Mets fan tonight. And so it's really special for me as a Mets fan turned, broadcaster to be a part of that every night.
Well, I will have you know that when you guys are not doing the broadcast, we won't take it very personally. We get very upset. Very upset weekend.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe one day they'll let us go crazy and do the first round of the playoffs or something. But I'm not holding my breath.
We will be watching. John DeMarsico, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And if you are trying to be the most passionate person in the room, it is coming across on the broadcast. So thank you for your time.
Thank you guys for having me.
You guys, this has been another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Thanks so much. See you next week.